The head of the Tigrayan rebel forces in northern Ethiopia says that 65% of their fighters have disengaged from the battlefront. This comes a month after a ceasefire agreement was signed.
The two sides had been fighting in the north of Ethiopia since November 2020 in a civil war that has left tens of thousands dead and a humanitarian crisis in its wake. The two sides signed a permanent cessation of hostilities in an African Union-mediated peace deal on November the 2nd in South Africa. A follow-up agreement of disarmament of Tigrayan People's Liberation Front fighters, humanitarian access guarantee, and an entry of Ethiopian military into Tigrayan capital Mekele was subsequently signed on November 12 in Kenya. Tedesi Wekeda, Commander-in-Chief of the Tigray People's Liberation Front, said their forces are still maintaining fighters in locations where there is still a presence of anti-peace forces. Last Thursday, the federal government said a joint committee mandated to draw up a detailed plan for disarmament of the Tigray People's Liberation Front had begun its work and would finalize the plan in a few days. The fighting has killed thousands, displaced millions, and left hundreds of thousands facing famine. The World Health Organization said on Friday it still does not have unfettered access to Tigray.
Well, for some reaction, we're now joined by Dr. Hafte Gebresilassie, who is the Secretary of the Tigray Association here in South Africa. Dr. Gebresilassie, always good to talk to you. Thanks for joining us on the program. Tell us how the ceasefire is going from your understanding a month after it's been signed.
Thank you very much, Peter, for having me once again. As you explained, you know, the Commander-in-Chief of the Tigray Defense Force, General Tadesse Warede, said that more than 65% of the Tigray Defense Force have disengaged from the Tigray mountains and the battlefields or the battlefronts. And this is the biggest concession in the history of Tigray, as far as I know, that is to save the millions of Tigrayans from death. But this cessation, I mean, this disengagement was supposed to be incongruent with the withdrawal of the non-ENDF forces, according to the cessation of hostility agreement signed in Pretoria and Nairobi. However, the government of Ethiopia has failed to fulfill its responsibilities in three basic issues. The first one is the withdrawal of the Eritrean forces, because those forces are still, as we speak, killing thousands of Tigrayans, looting from teaspoon up to the biggest tracks in Tigray, and raping our girls and women and burning infrastructure. But the government of Ethiopia has failed to withdraw or to pressure the Eritrean government to withdraw from Tigray. This is the first thing the federal government has failed. The second one, and the major one, is restoration of basic services into Tigray. However, the services have not been restored. Tigray is still without banking, without electricity, without internet. So the federal government has failed even the second one. And the third issue, and the other very important one, is humanitarian access. Actually, humanitarian aid convoys are allowed to step into Tigray, and basically the warehouses in Mekele, according to the government of Tigray, has been full of humanitarian food or other commodities. However, still the central and eastern part of Tigray is in the hands of the Eritreans, whereby the humanitarian aid convoys are unable to distribute the human-saving food to the people.
So, are the Ethiopian forces honoring their side of the agreement in terms of withdrawing their military might from the front line?
Well, according to the two parties, they are in agreement. They are talking on a daily basis on how to implement the agreement signed in Pretoria and in Nairobi. I think even Eritrea is beyond the capacity of the federal government. And I just call upon the international community, the United Nations, the African Union to press the Eritrean forces out of Tigray. If you may remember, in the interview of the Secretary General for the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, even he was skeptical to name Eritrea. He was just trying to say foreign forces. Even Obasanjo, he was saying about foreign forces instead of calling Eritrea by its name. I don't know why they are skeptical to call by its name. There is no other foreign forces in Tigray. It's only Eritrea. And Eritrea is the main spoiler. And as far as my understanding, Eritrea is the biggest threat for the success of the cessation of hostility agreement. So even though we agree, or the federal government and the Tigrayan government agreed upon the disarmament, disengagement, and from the Tigrayan side, they have already started the disengagement, but it was supposed to be in concurrent with the withdrawal of the non-ANDF forces. But the Eritrean forces are still there killing Tigrayans. The Amhara forces are still there killing Tigrayans. Only from the side of the Tigray the engagement is happening.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult scenario. And you've mentioned the needs that the Tigrayans have on the ground. If things don't change quickly and things get better for the Tigrayans quickly, you've said that the Tigrayan forces have retreated from the front line. But if things don't change, is there a danger that this ceasefire might not hold?
Exactly, that's my understanding. Even I'm just worried that the war might reignite, because the reason for the disengagement, the reason for the disarmament is in order to allow the people of Tigray to get relief, to get food, to get electricity, to get the life-saving services. But still, there is no restoration of services. Even the humanitarian aid are limited to Mekele, the capital of Tigray, and Shire. Still around 2/3 of Tigray is under the control of the Eritrean forces and the Amhara forces, and those forces are not allowing even the humanitarian aid conveys to distribute their service, to distribute food, to distribute wheat. This means that the cessation of hostility has failed civilians in Tigray.
All right, so what will happen next, do you think? The African Union is almost acting as surety for this peace agreement. What should they do to make sure that it holds?
Well, that's a very important question, actually. As I said before, Eritrea is the main spoiler country, and I don't think African Union alone can press the Eritrean forces to withdraw from Tigray. So I just call upon the international community in general and the United Nations in particular to put a meaningful pressure on the side of Eritrea to withdraw from Tigray, because I think it is beyond the capacity of the federal government even to push a pressure on Eritrea. So the only solution is if the international community, if the United Nations, if the African Union all supports the federal government of Ethiopia to withdraw, to press the Eritrean government, the Eritrean forces to withdraw from Tigray. That's how peace can be built.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much indeed for joining us, Dr. Gebresilassie, and giving us an update on this latest development. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Peter.
All right, that's Dr. Hafte Gebresilassie, who's the secretary of the Tigray Association in South Africa. The Tigrayan forces have withdrawn 65% of their armed forces on the front line. And this, of course, has been this battle, this war that's been taking place between the Tigrayan forces as well as the federal government army in the north of the country. Well, we'll have to wait and see. This is a month after the peace agreement have been signed.